If there was ever a single book that I think everyone who likes anime and manga should read, it would be Azuma Hiroki's book, Otaku the Database Animals. Sometimes the book has galaxy-brained takes, but at its strongest, it gives us a framework to understand anime and otaku that's both highly intuitive and incredibly useful. But let's not worry about what those galaxy-brained takes are for today, as I want to jump right into the book's best idea, that being database consumption and its relation to otaku and otaku media. One quick note before we get into it, the description will have notes, sources, and left out information in case any part confuses you or if you want a more in-depth answer. There'll also be a PDF of Otaku Database Animals if you want to read it further. So Azuma conceives of the otaku as a postmodern consumer, one which seeks to consume and classify characters from anime, manga, and visual novels according to their traits by anonymously creating databases that catalog, store, and display their results. This database that Azuma talks about doesn't refer to any specific database online. Azuma is referring to a non-hierarchical collection of various media elements that define a family relation amongst the media we consume. Instead of seeing otaku as uniquely Japanese, Azuma sees the rise of otaku culture as marking a new global trend in consumption. He mentions Trekkies as a Western example. The reason for why he links these features to postmodernity is for two reasons. The first is the omnipresence of simulacra, and the second, the dysfunctionality of a grand narrative. Two things that sound pretty complicated, but will make more sense when we look at a show like Digicore. Digicore's main character, Digicore, appeared around 1997 to 1998, originally as a mascot for an anime and gaming store, and at this point there existed no narratives or stories behind the mascot at this time. As the character gained attention, anime, novels, and games with the character were produced. Because of this process, the narrative world around the character came to be formed anonymously and collectively. For example, Usada Hiraku or and Petit Karat are characters associated with Digicore, but were released only in 1999. On top of this, Petit Karat's name was also decided by a fan poll. Whilst Digicore is now known to be cocky and carefree, these character traits did not exist in her originally and were added in the anime version as a form of self-parody. Digicore's development was not managed by any particular author or production company, but instead was an assemblage of various corporate ad campaigns. It doesn't make much sense to ask what the original Digicore is, who the author is, or what kind of message is implied. The entire project is an assemblage of various productions. Digicore flipped the normal order in which the story of a work is followed by its character merchandise. Instead, Digicore's narrative is a subordinate element within the whole media mix strategy. Projects such as the anime or novel, usually seen as independent works, are merely related products on the same level as character mugs, figurines, or keychains. The narrative is a surplus item added to the settings and illustrations that surround the series. But this idea of a database also extends to the production of characters in their visual design and their personalities. When we look at Digicore, we can see it composed of various elements favored by otaku, which Azuma calls moe elements. Each moe element has its own origins and backgrounds developed in order to stimulate the interests of consumers. These moe features are not a simple fetish object, but rather a property emerged through market principles. Most moe elements are visual, but they can also manifest as a particular way of speaking, setting, character arcs, and so on. Digicore, for instance, has antennae-like hair, a maid costume, cat ears, and a collection of various other moe features as if to downplay the authorship of the designer as much as possible. Otaku already have an intuitive knowledge of this, which is why Boru-type search engines exist to catalog art by their moe elements. As soon as a character is consumed, they are broken down into elements, categorized, and registered into a database. If there is no appropriate classification, a new element or category will be created. In this sense, the originality of an original character can only exist as a simulacrum, or a copy without an original. This is why you hear people naively calling anime and manga incestuous, because the visual design of characters seems to endlessly reiterate inside the otaku database. In the example of Digicore, we should grant the show's characters as a kind of output generated from a collection of pre-registered elements based on various moe elements that are in fashion. Looking outside of Digicore, we can also investigate the various characters resembling Ionami Rey. In the 1990s to 2000s, Rey lookalikes were being produced and consumed on a massive scale in manga, anime, and novels, both for the commercial market and doujinshi markets. According to Azuma, the proliferation of these characters shouldn't be seen as a direct influence of Evangelion as a father text. Instead, we should look at it from the standpoint of the database. According to Azuma, the emergence of Ionami Rey did not influence authors as much as she changed the rules of the moe elements sustaining otaku culture. Because of this, even those authors who were not deliberately thinking of Evangelion began to unconsciously produce characters closely resembling Rey from newly registered moe elements, such as a quiet personality, blue hair, pale skin, and a mysterious nature or power. Each time a popular character emerges, the moe element database changes accordingly, and as a result, the following seasons will find a new generation of characters featuring new moe elements derived from previous ones that have proven successful. When otaku consume works such as Digicore, they are not simply consuming an independent work, nor are they consuming characters and settings by themselves. Rather, otaku are consuming the database of otaku culture and participating in a media mix that is non-hierarchical. It's worth noting here that Azuma isn't trying to attack otaku. His ultimate aim is to elevate them so people can properly understand and research their media. Azuma has a lot of appreciation for otaku works, even if this description may seem quite negative on the surface. So summing up, Azuma argues that in otaku culture, each individual work appears on the surface to be understood as an expression of a database-like depth in two ways. In one way, the narrative-based work is a subordinate element of a media mix strategy without coherent order. In another way, each character is an output of a database of moe features accumulated within the whole of otaku culture. By consuming each individual work and merchandise, the otaku consumes the database-like structure underneath, where each element in the media mix relates to the whole database of otaku culture and its signifiers.